now. But Kathy, I'm just going to play yours because yours was probably the most pretty, if that's okay. And you can probably unmute. And can you give us a running commentary? This will be interesting. I don't know if this will work. We'll no. A verbal commentary. I've got to. So I don't know if this will work as a thing, but yeah. So we'll just have a quick listen to Kathy's improvisation.
In the key of C.
Are you unmuted, Kathy? Straight down the arpeggio. I just have to make a comment there. Straight down the arpeggio, doing the melody, and she jumped off the melody into improvising. Really, I really like that.
Chords, nice chromatic chords.
Yeah. And that, I really like that. You went from that diminished, you went from the -7 shape and you pulled it back into a diminished, and then when you went back up to a -7 shape, you're doing so much of using chord shapes and then finding knowing the sympathetic notes and going down a semitone and back up a semitone.
That's something I learnt recently. Just find the chord shape and then use the semitone lower to come back into it all the time.
I'm enjoying this process because it feels like we're Roy and HG, you know.
Who are you?
I'll be Roy.
That was an accident.
Notice how she pauses.
And did you get the thing out of the oven properly?
Oh yes, the cake. It was the birthday cake.
And where am I? How do I get rid of this? What have I done? Oh, there it is.
Stop screen.
Stop share. Great.
Share. Yeah.
So yeah, that was really inspirational, Kathy.
Oh, thank you. I worked hard at it.
Yeah, good on you though. It shows
all the notes.
What is that?
That looks like a class timetable to me.
Oh, I see. So what she's got, folks?
I've got it's a box for every bar.
Yeah.
And then when there's only one, usually most of the chords were two bars of each chord. So I knew I had space to either. I think there's one here. Hang on. There's one lot of E7 here. Play the second inversion, then play the third inversion. And then
that's your note.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then all the last line is a new chord every bar.
But that's a really common jazz device, folks, is writing out your chord charts like that.
I didn't know that.
And oh, right, well done. And giving yourself, this is what I used to do too. I used to give myself little hints as to what little formula as to what I was going to do in that bar. There were some bars that I knew exactly what I was going to do, and others that were a little bit more
some with little arrows, things like that.
So it was very, very much about your improvising around the chord shapes.
Yes, but the thing is though that the melody, she echoed the melody. Like I could hear the melody in those chord shapes too. So not saying you played exactly the melody, but I mean.
No, I only did it on those first two triads really.
Yeah, it's great to get that suggestion.
What I really discovered when I was looking for all this was the backing track. So there's this guy called Pete Ferrugia. I'll put it in the chat.
Oh,
and you
thanks.
put in backing tracks, he has backing tracks for that song at 3 different speeds, and there's 3 different interpretations to play with.
Oh, that's
So that was at
nice.
85. He has another one at 100, and he has another one at 140.
Wow.
Oh, Kathy, who was that? Where was that?
I'll put it in the chat.
Great, thank
In
you.
this.
Yeah. And he's got one for, I just looked at that, Fly Me to the Moon, in the same key.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's a pretty, Fly Me to the Moon is a pretty, we've done it in the orchestras over the years, and it's a very popular one amongst ukulele groups. I think we've got the Portland ukulele group
Yeah, we do.
version, which is written out. But again, the sort of the melody falls out of that one, out of the chord sequence on that in some respects, on Fly Me to the Moon. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you. And
Thank you.
thanks to everybody who put in homework in some medium or another, other than excluding Will from that. So your homework is due Thursday night, Will, at Orchestra. And yeah, so just to recap, we started with the pentatonic scales. That was the first week. So the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic, and how and where they're applied. And then in the second week, what did we do? We did a bit more on feel, didn't we?
Yeah, and blues.
And blues.
And got much more into the blues. So the pentatonic, the blues scale.
And started with secondary dominance in the second week.
But third week was really secondary dominance, which most people addressed in their
and minor chord substitution. So
Yeah.
what the hell to do when they go out of key, basically.
Yeah. And now we're moving into much. I guess it's more. It's a stranger territory in some ways, but it's not as well, because when you do those chords, like when you use your chord shapes to create to create melodies that come out of the chord shapes, what you often will miss, and quite a few of you didn't miss this, you actually employed it really well, is using those chord shapes and using notes out of that at the same time. So those harmonized scales and people like Sam Laman are just all over that. They just create really beautiful melodies using 2 notes primarily. Sometimes it's 3. So we're going to do those the harmonized stuff. We've already done. Now, this is what confuses me sometimes, is that we've done the minor pentatonic and the blues scale, and that's minor stuff already.
Yeah.
And also the major pentatonic is the same as the minor pentatonic when it's
Sort of.
yes, like
Sort
C
of.
is the same as C major pentatonic is the same as A minor pentatonic, but you're saying we're now moving into minor songs.
Proper minor territory, I call it. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but we're looking at songs that are not blues. And
Not in that genre of blues,
No,
but they
not
sort of are a bit too. They're bluey, aren't they?
No, they're minor songs. So think your Eastern European songs. Think your gypsy jazz. Think your, did I say Jewish songs? Have I said that yet?
No.
Think Latin songs. So they've got real flavour and real resonance. They're minor. They've got a lot of saudages, which is a Brazilian word meaning for feeling and longing. And so they're beautiful to improvise around in, but they're hard if you don't know the scales.
And you can just do, I noticed you've talked about Aeolian scale, which is just a...
Yeah, I'm not going to go there today.
But that's just the major scale. Shifted up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
but
we're going to
then you can mess that up with the harmonic minor scale. And that's the really
I think the
chunky one.
harmonic minor scale is the most tasty. It's not the only one. You can use, as most of you would, some of you would know, there's 4 or 5 or 6 minor scales that you can use in anything across all genres. But I decided to make it simple. We're just looking at the harmonic minor scale because it's the one that you can use, I think you can use the most across those genres that I just discussed. Eastern European, Latin, gypsy jazz, that sort of, you know. And so that's why I sent you, and it's different again, it's different fingering, which is why I sent it out to you on the weekend. I had a typo in one of them, which is why I had to resend it to you. You might not have noticed, it was in the F scale. I had a B instead of a C there. But yes, and Kathy has also sent us some patterns for a harmonized scale. So I sent those to you today. So there's numerous ways you can approach the harmonized scales. You can use them on your load, as I showed you.
Harmonized or harmonic?
Oh, sorry,
minor?
harmonic minor. Sorry, excuse me. So I just need to look at the. So I just need to look at my handout to be able to talk to it a bit more. So I need that one. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm just going to get you to keep those all together if you don't mind. And I need that one. So this is what I'm going to talk to a little bit and what we're going to work off tonight. Now, I'm acknowledging there are plenty of other minor scales, okay? I just wanted to keep it simple and stick to the one that I think you use the most, but that's maybe not true. And it's a really beautiful scale. It's got a flat third and a flat six in it. That's what that's referring to up there. It's quite different to other minor scales. Others have flat seven, you know, a flat six, a flat seven. All of them have a flat third, but this one has a flat six, which makes it so interesting. And so it sounds, I'll just choose the easy one. It's got that da 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 da. You know, it's got that Arabic. Right, it's sort of Arabic or Spanish or Moorish, you know, MOOR. So it's and it's used across European music, gypsy jazz, Eastern European music. It's one of the scales used. So I thought, so there's, sorry, I'm not very confident with teaching this, but the way you find a minor song, that's the tricky thing, is how the hell do you spot a minor song? I want you to go to Dance Me to the End of Love. And look, Kathy and some other folk there, Michelle, I know you folk have got a lot of theory. If you want to chip in at any stage, that's totally fine too. I'll just do my spiel and then you guys can. So Dance Me to the End, and John, of course. So Dance Me to the End of Love, we look at that music and we see there's one sharp, which suggests it's in the key of G. But of course, when you look at your circle of fifths, you can see that the relative minor of G is an E minor. So that's a first indication that this is an E minor song, not in the key of G, but in the key of E minor. So if you look at your circle of fifths, you go down your G, and E minor will also have only one sharp, that is the F. Okay. Secondly, look for the fifth chord. Now the fifth chord in E is going to be B. If it's seventh, that is most likely going to be a minor song. The fifth chord in the minor keys is always a seventh. Nearly always. There's lots of variations on that, but just take it as a general rule. Michelle, Kathy, any comments on that one so far?
It's not a minor seven.
It's not a minor seven. It's a major seven, a dominant seven. Go,
No,
Kathy.
That's new to me.
Oh, right. Okay. So,
sorry, can I ask a question? What song are we looking at?
Dance Me to the End of Love. So it said Dance Me to the End of Love, James Hill, and it had all these bloody guffy things around it. But there's 2 pages that look, the first one looks like that.
Let's play it. I think we should play
And
it.
we're going to play it. We're getting there. We're playing it, right? That's how you do this stuff. You don't.
Jane, can you repeat that just phrase, that the fifth chord?
The fifth chord is nearly always a secondary, is a dominant 7.
Okay.
The fifth chord. So that's another indication that you've got a minor key, because some songs will just start off on the 2 minor or the 6 minor, you know?
I'm sorry, guys, but I don't have that song, and I don't remember seeing it in the things to
So
print out. But anyway,
just check it out.
Anna hasn't got it.
I don't have it either.
Yeah,
It's on the page. It's on the page.
It was called Boost to Uke. Thanks, Janie. It was called Boost to Uke, but inside is the sheets of music. You know what? It doesn't matter that you. Unfortunately, I'm sorry
In the
if it
chat
wasn't.
box, if you want to, it's called "Dance Me to the End of Love."
Yeah, dance.
I just put it in the chat box.
Oh, thanks,
Thanks,
Will.
Will.
Thank you.
But the main thing is that we want you to improvise around a certain key on this, isn't it? So you're not playing the song.
You're not playing the song.
You're improvising.
You're improvising on the E harmonic minor. Now,
So
it's the fourth one down on my little list.
can
Okay.
we play that?
Yeah, and notice that I've given you some options. Now, the tricky thing about the harmonic minor scales, is either your pinky or your first has to go out of position. Do you know what I mean by that? So I'll just, yeah, John's got it there. So we're starting on the 4, 6. I like to put my pinky down on the 7.
Has everybody got this? E harmonic minor, where is that one?
Now now what I mean by out of position is we've been teaching all this time, one
Finger to fret
finger,
rule.
1 fret. Harmonic minors, you can't do that. You have to move either your pinky or your first out of position. It has to cover 2 frets. I prefer to move my first. You might prefer to move your pinky.
Depends how much arthritis you've got, really.
So we're starting with the first finger on the 4th fret of the C string. Sorry if you know this already. And I've written the fingers there. Finger 1, 3, 4, get your first 4 notes. Okay, so that's cool. We're in position there. Then 3 and 5, which is the second and 4th finger on the E string. Now here's out of position. Your first finger has to go down to the C note. And then you're back in position.
Yeah.
And then you've got that tritone stretch. Sorry, minor 3rd stretch, excuse me. I want you to have a little noodle on that, in E, okay? Notice that you can choose to vary your finger pattern from how I do it. You can have your pinky out of position if you want.
Can I?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So, Sue, yep. Meeting ID is. Can somebody else share that with Sue, please? The meeting ID 826-2187-9302.
Who needs it?
Oh, Sue just wants it for iPad. 826-2187-9302 for a good time. Is that right, Sue?
Nice, isn't it?
I really like on major pentatonic. I'm just so careful with your mic. The major pentatonic is My Girl, and if you're doing it wrong, then you hear it. Like, is this right? That's not right. Like, I'm getting it wrong. So, and at the beginning of the harmonic minor scale, and as James pointed out, any minor scale, I really like to think of "I Was Made for Loving You" by Kiss. So you can hear it at the beginning. I was made for loving you, baby. You were made for loving me. But then you've got the last 3 notes as well. But at least for the first 2/3 of that scale, you've got a song in your head that you can be reassured that you're playing the right notes. Does that make sense, Steph? Yeah? I was...
That's one of the songs we rock out, so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yes. Yes, but then you've got to try and rock out with your flat and six, and then you sharp your regular seven. So it's your flat and six.
You know, I think I learnt minor scales on the piano that way. Could that
I
be
was going to
possible?
say, if you're a piano person,
This is
you would
normal.
know that scale really well.
Yeah, this is normal for me.
Exactly. This is normal for me too, because this is
Yeah.
where I learnt my scales, the piano. Yeah. So Michelle, you piano player, aren't you? Yeah, yeah. So Michelle's over this. Michelle, do you want to add anything that have I been confusing about the minor scales so far, or is there anything you want to clarify with me? Or
No, you're doing a marvelous job.
oh, that's you're pissing me in my pocket there, but
No, not at all. I'm just trying to translate it to the you.
yes, exactly.
That's where I'm
yeah,
going. Absolutely
yeah.
haywire.
Great, thanks. Because
Right.
yeah, piano players know their minor scales. You know, they know their minor scales really well. So, Dance Me to the End of Love. It's got one sharp, which looks like in the key of G, but it's actually in the relative minor, E minor. The fifth chord, which is the B, is a seventh, not a minor. We know that we can, and
So
in general,
So, Jane, just about that fifth chord, what you mean is the chord on the fifth degree of the scale, not the fifth chord in the song.
oh, sorry, no,
Yes,
yeah,
no, that's
yeah,
what she
yeah.
means, yes.
Sorry, the five, yeah, the
Yes.
five, yeah, and just to let you know, minor
Sorry
songs.
to be a pain, but I'm not clear on what you're saying. And thanks for raising that, Kathy, because I'm actually not clear. Could you just
Oh, good.
explain
No,
that
that's
again?
fine.
On the
So
about the
E,
degree,
I'm just going to count the chords in the key of E. E,
minor, or
E minor, F sharp minor, G minor, A, B7, C sharp minor, D sharp minor, E. That B7 is a dominant 7 on a minor key, the B. So if we were in the key of C, C minor, the G7 would be a 7th. If we're in the key of A, the E7 would be a dominant 7. The E would be the fifth.
okay,
Yeah, right?
yeah. This isn't my strong suit, right? And I suspect that other people in here might be quite confused by this. But what you're telling us is, so A, we've got the tool to play something good
Yeah.
with, and that's the harmonic minor scale.
Yeah.
Which harmonic minor scale do we use? And you're telling us how to find that out.
Yes.
You're telling us how to find
when
out
you
what
look
the
at
key is of Dance Me to the End of Love
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
you're saying that Dance Me to the End of Love is best used with E minor.
Yeah, yeah, and you see, it's confusing because it starts on an A minor 7, but it is in the key of E minor, and I know that because it's got an F sharp and a B7,
And it also finishes on it.
and it finishes on the E minor.
Okay.
So now, even though they're harder to play, they're more fun for improvising. So
It's a little bit like the blue note as well.
it's just like a blues.
Just because it's like annoying.
I think, no, it's not annoying. It's got more to work with, minor songs. Like Latin songs are beautiful to improvise on, and anything in a minor key, anything from that Eastern European, because it came from an improvisational tradition, right? You know, all that Russian music, Jewish music, Moorish, it was all highly improvisational. So anyway, let's just play the song. Get your fingers in the right place, work out what your notes are, and have a noodle on this song. Don't do too much.
Anna, have you got the E harmonic minor scale? You got it there somewhere? Are you understanding what we're doing?
And if anybody doesn't understand, please let us know, because there'll probably be 2 others that don't understand it as well.
Anna, that was to you. Have you got it? Yep.
I've got a really bad connection tonight, so I'm hearing most of it, not all of it.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you rather well.
Okay.
So using
All
the
right.
E-
Well, at the moment, I can see Dance Me to the End of Love, but I can't see you.
Oh, okay. But
so what do we want?
We don't want you to play the song. We want you to play the E harmonic minor scale over it.
E harmonic. Okay. Yep. Sure.
Yep. Cool. All right. Great.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay.
You're right, John.
I've won.
How's John's sound there? Can you? He's coming through.
Great. Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam Comerford.
One. Oh, 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, and.
Dance me to your beauty with a burning fire. Dance me through the panic till I'm gathered safe within. Lift me like an olive branch and be my turtle doves. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Notice there's a lot of space here for call and response. Let me see your beauty when the witnesses are gone. Show me slowly what let me feel you moving like they do in Babylon. Show me slowly what I only know the limits of. Dance me to the end of love. We do the interlude. Dance me to the end of love.
Let's give them a go.
Okay,
So your turn
keep going.
first. Okay, so now we're yeah, Will. I saw you getting into it. We're going to change the feel of that song now. So that was a Latin feel. Now we're going for a Balkan feel on that song.
7/8.
No, not the 7/8, but it's going to be.
Cossack.
Dance me to your beauty with a burning violin. Dance me through the panic till I'm gathered in safety in. Let me like an olive branch be my turtle dove. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Let's give them a verse. fun. I love that song.
How did you go with that? How did you go with your harmonic minors? Did you go, that was yummy?
Isn't it beautiful? It's such a beautiful melody. It's such, it lends itself towards improvising, doesn't it? It's just gorgeous. And you just need the right song for it. You think of those old fashioned songs, they're all bloody minor, crazy minors. There's Jewish minors, there's weird minors out there that I can't even get my head around. I've got a chart of weird minors, like this long, 30, 40.
All right. John.
Yes, John.
I do feel though in the interlude you probably can't use the harmonic.
That's what I was wondering.
No,
too.
it goes to it goes to the parallel major or something, I reckon. Or something.
Because it's got a D in it, I think it just goes to the natural minor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Yep, there's something going on there.
Yeah. I usually don't actually play the interlude, I must confess. I'm a bit naughty.
I've played that in a band for years, and it's great when you go to that D.
Yeah.
You go, oh, it's so uplifting. Let's all dance in a Circassian circle.
So now we're going to sway. I hope this is not going too quickly for you. Because what happens in minors, there's a lot of things that happen in minor songs. Just like John suggested, a lot of minor songs actually change the minor scale they're using in the song. Now, I haven't chosen any of those sorts of songs tonight. I've made it easy on you, okay? But minor songs can change their scale. They can go from a harmonic to an aeolian to a melodic. It's a bitch. But the most common thing that minor songs do is they go back to the relative major. They go to the relative major for a lift. Look at Sway. Okay, the verse is in
E minor.
E minor, right?
Is
We've got
that
the E minor,
B7 again?
B7, E minor, B7, right?
It's a
Okay,
setup.
even though it doesn't start on an E minor, because, they never do that. They're never too obvious, minor songs. And then where does it go to for the first two lines of the bridge? Which key? Yeah, yes, the G. It goes to the relative major. Remember, in your circle of fifths, circle of fifths, your G is the relative major. So, and the whole emphasis, the whole thing is to lift it, so you're going like a lazy ocean shore, hold me close, sway me more. And it lifts.
And if I can,
it just lifts the whole thing by going to the relative major. Many minor songs do that.
I was in the Ugly Uncles in Victoria, and in the better of the original cities, Bendigo, and that was directed at you, Darren, of course. And I was the trumpet player, and we did Dance Me to the End of Love, and we did Sway. And my solos would always come up. I just realized it would always come up in that relative major section.
Oh, really? Not
Well,
minor.
so in Dance Me to the Left goes da ba da 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 da, like the D and the E minor, and then I would do this. I would come in on this. Da 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 da. So the trumpet is a really uplifting instrument, and I think it's just reflecting what you just said about the chords.
It's a really good songwriting device
Interesting.
too. That when you're writing in a minor song, you might need a bit of a lift, a bit of a change of texture. Just go to the relative major. Bang. There it is for you,
Cool.
So we're going to play this song. Again, you're in the E minor, harmonic minor. But for the first two lines of the bridge, you're actually, I've got to say something firstly. See how it's got the D7 there? That's called a pivot chord. It's the 5 of the relative major, that is G. It's the 5 of the G. Your 5 chords, that's, V for 5, are always your pivot chords. That's where it says, change your key, because there's not a D7 in E minor, okay? It should be I think it should be a half diminished. So,
Don't know.
D sharp half diminished, I'm not sure.
It's not.
Oh, sorry, I don't want to come off.
No,
No, what is it? What is
No,
it?
I'm pretty sure it would be a D7, but not in harmonic minor, because the D is the 7th.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not a D7. The D7's not in the harmonic minor chord series.
So
Is
it
it?
says you'd have some kind of E flat chord, but the half diminished would be the F sharp because it's above.
Yeah, yeah. So it still doesn't have a D7 as such,
No,
as the seventh chord.
Which is how you know.
Yeah.
Change.
So that's indicating to you when you see it's called a pivot chord. You see a 5 chord D7, and you're going, oh shit, it's changing, and it's indicating that it's going to the G because D7 is 5 of G. They're called pivot chords. So it lifts up basically, and you've got to use a G pentatonic. You can still, I don't know. Tell me if you can stay in an E minor pentatonic, E minor harmonic. I don't know. Play around with this stuff. So let's do this. Is this all right? Can we do this song? You're in E harmonic minor. And then when you get to the first 2 lines of the bridge, the lift, you've got to go up to a G, like play more G stuff. Notice the B7 comes after the G, again a pivot chord. The 5 of the E minor, telling you that E minor is coming. Those are called pivot chords. Those 7s are telling you where you're going. Is that all right?
I'm sorry, Jane, you're right. It actually is a half diminished.
Yeah,
C
it
flat.
is a half diminished. Yeah, it's a half diminished.
He's looking at in the background. All right, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah. So okay. And this is so much fun. This is another song. Well, let's just get on with it. Because this is another song that you want to know the melody so that you can look around with the melody too. But anyway. When marimba rhythms start to play, dance with me, so make me sway, like a lazy ocean hugs the shore. Hold me close, sway me more, like a flower bending in the breeze. Bend with me, sway with ease. When we dance, you have play with me. Stay with me, sway with me. Here's a G. Other dancers may be on the floor, but my eyes will see only you. Only you have that magic technique. Back to minor. When we sway, I go weak. I hear the sounds of violins long before it begins. Make me thrill as only you know how. Sway me smooth, sway me now. All right, your turn, no, their turn.
Yeah.
2, 3. Another verse, stay in the E minor. Now we're going up to the G improvisation section. Two more lines. Make me thrill as only you know how. Sway me smooth, sway me now. Finish here.
Now, what I found then.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
What I found then was I pretty much just played the E minor chord, arpeggiated the E minor chord even over the B7.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it
got
fitted
the right
even with the
notes.
B7, and even if it didn't, I was able to just change things ever so slightly just by a semitone. So all of what we've been doing for the last 4 weeks is to teach your ear to hear a variety of sounds and a variety of feels, and to give you some tools that where your fingers can adapt to hopefully what you'll hear and want to express. So you're getting a repertoire of melodies, of scales, and of contexts of chord progressions that you go, ah, yes, I can do that. But my improvisational learning has been pretty much all ear, and I never really knew theory until, so I get a bit lost with how you're describing stuff.
Sure.
Even though, it's great. I love learning that stuff. I'm sure lots of people here do as well.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but
so the reason why your B7 works is because it's
E
just the
minor.
notes.
E minor.
Oh, the E minor, sorry.
Yeah.
It's just the notes out of the harmonic minor scale.
Yes,
still.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Right.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
That
the B.
dominant, the 5 dominant is a really good way to tell if you should be in harmonic minor when you solo.
Yeah.
If you ever see, for example,
Yes,
in E minor,
exactly.
if it's a B7, then you should use the harmonic minor in that
Yeah.
section because the notes match up.
Yeah, that's right. Because if it was an Aeolian minor, it would have a B minor, not a B7. So we're not going to go there in this section, okay? But in the next course we do, we tell you which minor scale to use based on what chords are there. Because, and there's generally 3, 4, 5 minor scales to choose from. But for now, we're just sticking to harmonics.
Okay. What are we doing?
All right. So,
Do you want to move on to this now?
I just wanted to do autumn leaves in the breakout groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Goody. Oh, except we haven't made breakout groups.
No, but we. So we're going to scoot to you do breakout groups while I talk.
Yep.
So everybody go to autumn leaves, and you've got a chord chart. Actually, let's just look at the chord chart together, not the notes. Although, notice again on your notation. So, and there's your chord charts. I hope you can see both of those. Just give me a nod. It's rather reassuring. Anna's frozen. No, Anna, have you not got your music out? So autumn leaves.
All I can see is the music now for that other song we were playing, Dance Me to the End of Love, and I don't know how to get it back to the other screen.
Just go, there's a little backwards arrow that you take.
Maybe.
There's a backward arrow in the left-hand side of your screen, maybe, that gets you back. So you're trying to navigate from our website. Is that what you're saying?
No, I opened the link to Dance Me to the End of Love.
Yeah.
And now
you can't get back. Yeah, there is a little left-hand arrow in the left-hand top of your screen that'll get you back. Move your mouse around.
Yeah, it's not. I'm clicking on a left arrow, nothing's happening.
Bugger. Can she go escape?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I might lose you. What happens if I lose you?
Thank you, Will.
Music in the chat box. Can you see the chat box, Anna?
Yeah, I just can't even hear what Will's saying.
Okay, Anna, can you go to the chat box because Will shared it with you?
In the chat.
So I don't know how to get to the chat box.
Okay, down the bottom of your screen, there's something called chat, and it's got a number 6 on it.
Have you scrolled down the screen, down to the bottom of the screen?
Down to the bottom banner.
And then it pops up.
You might need to print all your music off before class, Anna.
Maybe it doesn't have a printer.
Yeah, sorry, there's no chat box.
There is a chat
I've seen it before.
Yeah, you've got
it.
it.
There's not there now.
Well, we'll keep moving on. Sorry, because yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That's okay. I'll just listen to what I can listen to.
Yeah.
I'm going to open the rooms. I'm not sure who Mark Jackson is.
Can you not open the rooms yet?
No.
Right. Not yet. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So Autumn Leaves is a real, this is 101 jazz standard, right? And it has one flat in the music, which suggests what key would it be in if it was a major key. A flat would be in the major key, that F. Thank you, Kathy. Great. F. Thanks, Michelle. Yep. Great. So what's the relative minor to F? Look at your whatsy thing. Thank you, Kathy.
Oh, I think it was Michelle, actually.
D minor.
I didn't want to yell at it.
Thank you. So this song is tricky because what happens is it actually starts in the key of F, and it's really confusing because it doesn't start on the 1. It starts on the 2. A lot of songs do that. They start on the minor 2. That's the G minor. So it starts in F, right? Go across the line, and I'll tell you what the chords are, Anna. You've got G minor 7, C7, F major 7, B flat major 7, E minor 7 flat 5, A7. There's your clanger. That's not in the key of F, A7, is it? It should be an A minor. That's a pivot chord. It's going, what A7 is the 5 of D minor. It goes to D minor. So this song goes between F major to D minor. And then you just keep looking for the pivot chords. Every time I see a C7, I know I'm going back to an F because it's the 5 of F. Every time I see an A7, I know I'm going to D minor. They're pivot chords. So a lot of these songs, a lot of these Tin Pan Alley songs, major, minor, minor, major, minor, minor, you know, it makes them beautiful because they lift up, they sink down again, they lift up.
It's a little bit like I'm thinking the Pacific Highway, and there's about 3 turnoffs to Valor Beach, and there's always a sign that says turn right here for Valor Beach, and so you're looking for those signs.
Yeah, nice.
The 7. Oh, I'm going that way now.
Yeah.
Or
Now,
do I keep going through to Sawtell? You know.
Having said that, you could stay on the F pentatonic throughout this whole song and be just totally fine, okay? So you can just sit around on an F and sort
you could
of,
mix it up a bit.
Sort of. It'd be boring.
And you can use...
And the A7, it would sound a bit clunky on the A7. But also, you know how on jazz, how we move chromatically? Yep. You can do that too, right? You can move from an F to a D minor harmonic. You can move chromatically, like the A7, those pivot chords, I would definitely move chromatically on those, I think. John, any opinion on that? On my pivot, I think I'd move chromatically on my pivot chords because it would sound really cool.
I reckon it could sound really cool.
Yeah.
So you could stay plain.
Yeah, you can stay plain.
F, what did you say?
F pentatonic.
F major.
Major pentatonic.
F major pentatonic. You could stay plain. You could use your ear. You could use the chords and improvise around the chords and the sympathetic notes. Arpeggiate.
The inversions up the neck. You can use those.
Bend your way out of trouble, or slide your way out of trouble, or move chromatically out of trouble. Or you could do a different scale on every single chord.
Yes. Or when you get to the D minor sections, you can do a lovely harmonic flow to sound really sweet. So these songs, I think I've got this right. They're like a synthesis of everything we've taught you. You know, everything's there. The chromatic moving, the pentatonics, the harmonics, the chords, the inversions up the neck. And that's why these songs, this is why they're 101 jazz standards. This, Fly Me to the Moon. And that's why they're so highly improvisational and so loved by jazz people. Is that cool? Any comments from anybody that knows something about that stuff? So Anna, you're going to use your ear. We're going to break into groups, and we 3 are going to play you the song, and you're all going to have a play on that. Actually, maybe we'll do that as one group because we've got the bass. We're going to play it, and then we're going to break into groups, and we're going to talk about what we do in this song and what problems we have. Is that okay?
And I've made the breakout groups, and I put all the Anns and the Anna all in the same group.
Oh, thanks for that. Oh, jeez. Not hard. Not hard at all.
It's a very deft selection criteria.
Oh, jeepers. Okay. So.
Do you want to sing it a bit?
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
1. Oh, you count us in, John. Don't improvise. Leave it to them.
3, 4, 1. The falling leaves
Don't play chords, Rodney, too much.
drift by my window. The autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall.
Let's repeat that last line again, John. But I
Miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall.
most beautiful song. Really tough for improvising, isn't it, though? I mean, you really, jazz players, they know what measure bar is coming up. And
So you can't do a D minor, D harmonic minor in this one?
I reckon you can on the D minor sections for sure.
I think it's almost, for a lot of it, it's almost like a call and response. I would go like, whenever I see a G minor, I would use like an F major for the next little while, and then when I see the E minor, I know to move to D harmonic minor. So
Yeah.
it's almost like Falling Leaves Drift by My Window is F, and then Autumn Leaves of Red and Gold is D minor.
Yeah, as soon
and
as
then
you
repeat.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. Like you can see the chords that fit with each scale, and kind of take a guess for a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know what? That's totally okay to just use your ear and see where you're going with that one. Let's go into our groups and let's discuss it. We'll play it again, and we'll yeah. You might need to set John up on your phone. Is it ready for him?
Or does John want to stay here?
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Why don't you go on
yeah,
front?
Yeah, okay, that's good. You need the music, Mark. Are you okay with that?
Yep,
yeah. So you've got this one, John.
That should be fine. Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Let's take a look at it. And feel free to ask me any questions that are troubling you with this. But I kind of want to go over my general method for figuring this stuff out. So, of course, over the last little while, we've been doing some work using chromatic stuff, like chromatic scales. We've been using our chord shapes to help us figure stuff out. But I think...
No, we're all different grandparents.
Oh, where's that coming from?
Why did you come with us? Do you really want to be with us, Mark?
Oh.
Because we're grandma.
Mark, you connected to the Bluetooth on the bass amp. I was so confused. I turned it off. Yeah. That was so weird. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Uh, so yeah, we've talked about chromatic stuff. We've talked about chordy stuff and all those methods. But I think the one that I would instantly gravitate towards is actually the tricky switching scales for each section, because I think if you know what to look for, it's not as hard as it seems. A lot of jazz songs are made out of this thing called a 2-5-1. Has anyone not heard of that? Yeah. Okay, so it's based on the chords, like in terms of like the scale degrees. So like you play the second chord of the scale, the 2, you play the 5 chord, and then you play the 1 chord, and it's this really pleasing progression that you hear all the time in jazz. It's like you've probably heard it a million times around the place. Yeah. Well, if you look at this, and in fact, if you've got your circle of fifths with you, you might even find that helps. But most of the important bits in this song are just a bunch of 2-5-1s in in 2 different keys. So like this G minor C7 to F business is just a 2-5-1. The G minor is the 2 in the key of F, and the C is the 5 in the key of F. And then, of course, the 1 is the F in the key of F. And then that B flat is kind of just there for flavor, I think. But then you move over to this next section where you've got E minor, A7, D minor, and it's actually the same idea in terms of a scale. So like an E minor is the 2 in the key of D minor, and A7 is a 5, and D minor is 1. So it's following this similar progression. And in fact, you can see that the chords basically repeat in that second line. So the way I would think about doing it if I was soloing was when I saw that G minor 7, C7, F major 7 progression, I would use F, the F major scale, every time I see that, because I know that's in the key of F, because it's a F major 2-5-1. And it's, you just look for the chords. Every time you see it, there's one at the start of the first line and the start of the second line, and the fourth line also has it there, if you look at that. And then whenever it has that E minor to A7 to D minor, every time you see those chords grouped together, then you can switch to the D minor, the D harmonic minor. The reason you'd use D harmonic minor is because you've got an A dominant 7 there, an A7, rather than an A minor. And so because it's got the C sharp in that chord, you would use the harmonic minor instead. Every time you see a 5 with like a 5 dominant 7 in a minor key, then that tells you to use the harmonic minor scale. And it's in the same place on the second line, and it's on the third line, and skip fourth, and then it's just all the way through on the fifth line too. So basically it just goes F, D minor, F, D minor, stay in D minor for a bit, F, and then D minor to the end. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? So if I was to play it through, it's kind of just a matter of thinking in those 2 different scale shapes. With this song, you only need to know your F major scale or your F pentatonic, whichever you would prefer to use in this case, and your D minor, your D harmonic minor. Any questions before I play through it? Anything you're wondering about? Oh, I've got a few people.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So I'm kind of with you on the things. So you said the D minor to the G7 to the C is like that would be a C major, yeah?
It would, yes. In fact,
So
that's an interesting point.
So you're suggesting that would we play a C? Could we play a C major something there? or you wouldn't?
You wouldn't, but it's a really good point. I hadn't actually noticed it. It's actually, this whole song is basically moving in that pattern if you look around, which is really interesting. But so you're actually going to group, instead of grouping it as like a D minor, then G and C, try and group it in the G minor to C to F and the E minor to A to D. And those chords, those chord tonics, whenever you see them, even if they're not in that pattern, then try and use those certain scales. But yes, whenever you are in the key of C, you would use a D minor to G major to C major, and that would be a 2-5-1 in that key. So it's kind of cool that you noticed that, because I didn't. Anyone else have any questions? Everyone okay? All right. Well, I'm going to play the song then for you. I'll sing a little bit. There's lots of space in this melody, so when you're doing your solos, try and fill in the gaps in the melody, you know? The falling leaves, blah, 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 drift by my window, blah, 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 you know, that sort of thing. And I'll try and call out when to change scales if you haven't already written them all in. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. The falling leaves. This is F major. Drift by my window. And you change to D harmonic minor. The autumn leaves of red and gold. Back to F major. I see your lips, the summer kisses, E harmonic minor, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Stay in D harmonic minor. Since you went away, the days grow long. To F major, and soon I'll hear old winter song. D minor, but I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall. Nice. How did that go for you guys? Did it work out for you okay? Some people sort of, some people, yeah. That's really good. It's kind of interesting, like this song, if it didn't have those A7s, it would just be the key of F basically, because people, so most of you would probably know this already, but the A major chord and its relative minor chord, they have exactly the same scale, and F's relative minor is a D minor. But a harmonic minor, because it's built on a different kind of scale, it's got different intervals between notes. That's basically the only reason it's not just one key, which is super annoying. It makes it too tricky. But yeah, like in reality, you're using pretty much all the same notes. The only note that is changing in the scale is a C note. So with that in mind, those two shapes are almost like the D minor, the D harmonic minor shape, and the F major shape. They're almost interchangeable if you are able to know where the C in the scale is, so that you can change it between C and C sharp, depending on what part of the song you were in. That might be a bit of an overload of info, but for people who want to hear that, then that's something to think about, you know. You could play If you leave the C in the D minor, it's just a normal natural minor scale as opposed to the harmonic minor. It's the natural minor. And then if you put the C sharp into your F major scale, whoops. It's a bit of a weird one. I don't actually know what it's called because it's some weird freaky scale, but it's another one you can use. It's kind of just a way you can make the shapes more interchangeable if you want to think about it that way. But it's probably easiest just to think of them as they're two separate shapes. But you know, this whole improv thing is about your experimentation, and it's good to have some new ideas for you to play around with. Once you get all these freaky, tricky scales, the next step is kind of to like you've got the scales and you can play the notes in them, but then of course you want to make it sound like a fancy solo, and that's when you want to start putting your expressive techniques in, and you want to use some of those chromatic ideas that we've introduced and some of those chordal ideas, all these separate things that we're talking about. Like you want to have them as separate ideas first so that you can put them all together into your solos when you play them, and you can, you know, draw from all these different points of inspiration. And so, you know, a lot of the best solos are ones that don't stick to one of those particular ways of soloing. It's good to have a few so that, you know, you can use lots of different things in one place. Any questions?
No questions. That was great, John. I think what you said was really quite clear. I found if I got a little bit lost, I just threw a chord inversion and arpeggiated, played around with the chord inversion, and then went back to the scale, which works reasonably well.
Awesome, yeah. No, that's a really good thing to do, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you get lost. And obviously, Trish, one of your big strengths is knowing your chord inversions, so you can use that as a point to...
Yeah, that's right. I just throw back to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's really good technique to use.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Sue?
I was just saying how helpful it was to know that just going between the F and the D minor, and it just sounded so great and it made it so easy.
Oh, awesome. I'm really glad.
I would agree, Sue. And knowing just when you were actually calling that, John, was really what made it so much easier for me and so much more doable. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. I'm very glad.
Yeah, and just analysing the piece before you start and figuring that out before you actually start improving just makes it so much easier. You know, okay, this is where I'm going. You have a map of what you should be doing.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with jazz, I think, especially in genres you're not familiar with, if you do a quick analysis beforehand, that can be really super duper helpful. You know, something like this, if you look at where all the different notes in the chord are and just look at those little, you know, all the little things that you might not think about when you're just playing through on a whim, you know, looking at the chords, it can really help you like link ideas, I think.
Where you've got the A7 is the pivot chord of D minor, is C7 the pivot chord of F?
It is indeed, yes.
It is, okay.
Yep. The 5 chord of any key is that's also called the pivot chord a lot of the time.
Okay, yes.
And you can hear it when you play them, like, you know, in the key of C, for example, C, D, E, F, G, G is the 5. And if you ever go C, G7, it's taking you straight back to C. If you go there, like the furthest point from C, and so it makes you yearn to go back home. And that's the same in any key, including minor keys. D minor, A7 to D.
So the pivot chord is usually a 7, and as a fifth and a 5 chord and a 7, as a turnaround chord, which is commonly used at the end of phrases, you know, on ukulele sheets. So it all makes quite a lot of sense.
Exactly. And yeah, making it a 7 just makes it that little bit tenser, you know? It's the same thing. It's technically the same thing if I go C, G, C, but you still feel that little bit of extra tension when you go C, G7, C. There's just a little bit extra. So making it a 7 can really add a lot, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And of course, there are other pivot chords, but that's probably in a diatonic song, that's the one you'd use the most. But you can also use pivot chords to change key. So like if you were in C and wanted to change to the key of G, then you could play the 5th of G and it'd make you want to go to G from C. So I could be playing around in C, and then if I went to D7, that's the pivot chord for G, and all of a sudden G feels like home. So yeah, lots of little things like that can be very useful.
Yeah.
And your circle of fifths is great for learning that stuff.
What about diminished chords for changing keys within a song?
Diminished chords work in a really similar way because diminished chords actually have a lot of the same notes as the 5th of a key. It's only like 1 note difference really in a diminished triad. I know this is kind of going a bit above and beyond, but yeah, there's this particular thing you can do. Like diminished chords work as like a 4-way gateway into
multiple chords,
multiple keys, and it's all about which note you
multiple
change.
Keys.
There's probably a chart somewhere. I don't know it all off by heart, but it's well worth experimenting with.
Yeah.
We got a little off topic there by the end, but it's okay. I think they learned something.
My group found the F pentatonic was too boring, and that the D harmonic minor was really useful for a lot of that. The D harmonic minor was really useful for a lot of that song. What did your group find, love?
Well, we found out that my phone automatically hooked into the speaker, and so all of our
is that
what that was.
Oh, right.
So are they all here yet? The ands?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, we got 1, 2, 3. And
Kalpa and.
Got 3 ands.
No, I'm missing an and. Oh, have we got 3 ands? No, I've got.
Where's Anne? The other and.
Still waiting for the other and to come.
No, I have my autumn leaves back. I left it on that.
Oh yeah, sure.
There she is, Anne Wilson.
There she is. Yeah.
Good. I thought was a really interesting little device on here was. Oh, now I've lost all my different ands again. It was Anne Comerford.
Yeah.
Anne Comerford. I asked Anne Comerford could she just play the chord and sing the melody, and then fill in the rest. So, and she could do that. And I thought that was a good way to understand where people were at with their improvising. So it's a real fill-in song. It's a real call and response, this one, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I just think it's.
That's how I
think these songs are so wonderful because they leave so much room for interpretation. Basically, they can be what you want. Hey, I think we should now. I'm going to leave the whole minor thing alone. Right? That's it. Done with minors. Okay, and we've only really looked at the harmonic minor. We will do another course after this with Sam Leman that goes deeper into minors, but it's scary territory. What I thought we'd do is look at something that some of you are familiar with, is harmonized scales. Oh, sorry. I went up on the C and came back down the F, I think. So this is this stuff. We've got a sheet there that's got harmonized scales.
And those in our groups, those who've done stuff with us will know there's 3 songs that we do that you're able to consolidate your harmonized scales on. And they are there's San Jose. There's Do You Know the Way to San Jose, which is Dionne Warwick's whoa, 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 whoa. But you're harmonizing it. And so that is written. Oh, did you hand out the music for You Do You Know the Way to San Jose? Apart from this, with the...
I'm sure they've got the riffs there.
Have you got the riffs there for
I
that?
haven't changed it from last.
There's a San Jose riffs section. So again, it's really contextual. It's in the context of that song. I don't know that we have.
Yeah, I'm sure it was there.
Is it? Oh, it's probably attached to it. But the other two songs are Spanish Harlem.
We do have the riffs.
Thanks, Sue. So there is a rose in Spanish Harlem. That's using harmonized scales as well. And then when we learned that one, people said that's like that New Zealand song that we used to that they used to sing. That was a pop hit. It was right. How bizarre. So there's all these different ways that you can learn the harmonized C scale on those three songs. If you play those three songs, particularly in a group, it's a really, really nice, it's a nice, easy way to consolidate your fingerings and to learn. So we've learned patterns. We've learned patterns of, 1, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4. We've learned those patterns, but this is a different sort of pattern. This is
together, apart, together.
Yeah. So it's understanding the relationships between the strings and depending what key you're in.
I apologize. The San Jose has separate riffs, doesn't have them on the same line. So
Oh, that's the old version.
Yeah. But so basically, yeah, it's about using it's harmonized, and on this harmonized scales, be careful, because on this sheet I've given you, sometimes the third is above. It's usually a third. It is always a third. Sometimes the third is above the melody note, and sometimes it's below it. Just depends on what's easy for the uke. Easy for the uke. So we could, what should we do now? I'm just going to review my notes, folks, and just work out what we should. Yeah, we could actually do, we could just do, yeah. So what we might do is just 1, 6, 4, 5, and D. And
D. I think it should be in C.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what are you talking about? You're doing the harmonized or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking. Okay, we could do it in
because
C then.
it'd just be. I think it'd be easier for you to do them to do that.
Okay, we'll do C. We'll do C.
So let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. So you need your harmonized scales, major scales. That's 0, 0, 2, 1, 4, 3, 1, 0, 2, 3.
Let's
4,
see
3,
how this fits in.
7, 5.
Yeah.
Those, just have a noodle on those in this song that's going to stay in C, and you'll see they're really lovely to use and rather useful.
1, 2, C, A, C, 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 A minor.
Showing off them, what I did want to show you is the really useful thing about those harmonized scales is you can use them when you're playing chords too.
Well, what a harmonized notes other than parts of a chord.
They're parts of a chord. So I'll just show you what I did. That was the C. I didn't do much on that, although I could have. A minor, I didn't do much on that either. I could have, but I didn't. F. But on the G, I was getting a bit bored by then, so I went, Mark, shush.
Sorry.
You know, they're just so easy to use as little fills. I like harmonized scales mostly for fills myself, but I could have that wrong. Look at everybody going away at them. Love it.
And then I think the next stage, if you practice scales and feels and chord progressions, then it's very easy to move on to the next stage of making stuff up that you want to keep, which is called writing a song. And so like recently, Jane and I sat on a beach and I just did this little riff that was all harmonized C scale stuff, and I decided to write a song around it. So yeah, and it's all that sort of thing. I don't know how to do that in this environment, really, like the harmonized. Are there any questions about that, about the harmonized stuff? I expect big things from you, Will, on Thursday night.
I've got a question.
Yeah, Kathy and Anne. Kathy first.
Oh, well, I just wanted to point out this handout.
Oh, the one that you've got?
Oh, yes, that'd be great.
Now you
Kathy.
call it double stops. Is that right?
That's just because the gentleman who put it up called it double stops.
And I think that's violin language, is it not?
Yes, that's what they call it on unfretted stringed instruments.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So if you look at the C line here, because Jane was calling me very analytical before, but I am visual patterns imprint. And in the C line, you've got repeated patterns, like you were saying before. So you've got 2 open middle strings.
Yes.
Then the 2 yellow, and then the 2 green, then the 2 blue. Then that pattern repeats for the rest of the scale.
Aha, yes, look at that. 5 frets worth of patterns.
Yeah. So once you get to red to blue, then you do red to blue again for that scale.
If you're lucky enough to have a colour printer.
Yes, that's true.
Or in John's case, you could be colourblind and then this would be worthless.
It's not worthless.
Yeah.
I particularly like, I use the A.
Yeah.
I use that a lot because A is hard to improvise on.
It took me a while to decode the colours, but it really worked. And then I did one for E minor, which I also included for a student of mine, because when we play sway, we play it in A minor.
Yeah, which is this one that I sent these to you guys today.
So it's just the straight, all the A minor scale is the riff in the middle.
So these are just lovely, Kathy, and everybody, I sent it to you in an email today so that you've got it, print it off and play with it, because it's just really useful.
Thanks, Kath.
It's
my pleasure. I just found it on the net.
It's more useful than
thank you, Sheridan.
It's sort of more useful than my version.
Anne, did you have...
Yeah, I was going to ask some tips in fingering. Obviously, you keep your fingers on the strings, but you're swapping. You've got different gaps there. What are you suggesting with the fingering?
And for me, you're talking about the harmonised scales, aren't you?
Yeah.
When I teach a beginner's class, like the very first, chords, and it's all about finger efficiency. So you've got to figure out how you do that sort of stuff.
I think it's a preference myself. I prefer to just together, apart, together, apart, together, apart. But some people would prefer to go together, add, together, add, together, add.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's just a preference, personally.
However your fingers work best.
Yes. Yeah.
It's yes.
Okay.
So good question. Not sure if we had an answer there for you.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Shall we move on to, do you want to just briefly address Dorian by playing it, and John could have a solo? Do you do Dorian, John?
Yep.
Okay, now the next course will examine modes, which are still scales. In fact, our major scale is actually Ionian mode, the first mode.
They're all named after Greek things.
They're named after Greek islands.
Or columns. Or architects.
It's mostly islands. So there's, help me out here. Ionian is the major scale. Then there's Dorian, which is a minor scale.
Phrygian?
And then
is that the next one?
Yep.
Phrygian, which is another sort of minor scale, sort of. Then there's Lydian, which is the fourth. Mixolydian, they're a little bit similar but quite different.
Mixolydian's used in rock heaps.
Yes, and bluegrass.
Oh, and that's what Royals is. And,
yeah. I don't know about rock, but it's definitely bluegrass.
Oh yeah, I mean they use it.
Just
Yeah,
the flat
sometimes
set.
they use it in rock.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on the song.
Yeah. Aeolian, which is a minor scale that you'd be familiar with.
Natural minor.
Natural minor, that's called Aeolian. Uh-oh.
Locrian.
Thank you. I always forget Locrian.
Only people in Babylon use Locrian. Locrian's great. It's on the, they're all built anyhow. They're all built on the.
It's really good for metal, Locrian.
Of course.
That's why he knows about it.
Do they call it the devil's mode?
Yeah, no. Well, they could call it the devil's mode, but it's the devil's interval. Is the tritone.
Tritone.
If anybody wants to, Trish, you'd probably listen to it, but I still have somewhere hidden, somewhere on my website, a really fantastic podcaster to be called these days, about the devil's interval, the tritone.
Anyway, we're going to move on, right?
Yes.
So what we're going to introduce you to is yet another minor scale. It's called a Dorian minor. Dorian mode, Dorian minor, yeah. And now the tricky thing about Dorian
Shall
is,
I play that?
say the D Dorian.
Okay, sure.
The D Dorian is actually just the C scale, but starting on the D note. Just the C scale.
You're still just doing a C scale, and we're doing everything is free now.
So an E Dorian is the D scale starting on an E note.
Yeah, I think we should stop there.
You know, like it's just one note away
Dorian.
from its parent scale. Parent scale, okay? So we're going to play you, spotting these songs takes a little bit of skill, which we're not going to worry about here, but everything is free is a D Dorian, which means you can play a C scale to your heart's content.
But just keep coming back to the D.
But you land on the D. You don't land on
focus around the D.
You don't land on the C, you land on the D.
And John is going to do a D Dorian solo. Is that right?
Yes.
You will? Now you're not going to go mess us up with any sort of Locrian crap or anything.
No, my job is Dorian today, so I'll be good.
Did you say your job is Dorian?
Yeah, my job is Dorian.
All right. We're doing this song lots in our Zoom period. So people like Ann Wilson and Cowper and Susie and Rodney
Will
and
would be
locals.
very familiar with it. So just remember you're doing a C major scale, not pentatonic, all the notes, but you're starting on the D. Your D's your home instead.
Everything is free now. That's what they say. Everything I ever loved, I gotta give it away. Someone hit the big score, figured it out, that we're gonna do it anyway, even if it doesn't pay. I can get a tip jar, gas up the car, try to major. Another round of yours. And now John. Harmonized bass. Every day I wake up, humming a song. I don't need to run around, I just stay home, write a little love song, my love to myself. If there's something that you wanna hear, you can sing it yourself. 'Cause everything is free now. That's what they say. No one's gotta listen to the words in our head. Someone hit the big score, figured it out, that we're gonna do it anyway, even if it doesn't pay. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everybody. That That's 4 weeks of Quokkas. I can't believe it. It's 4 weeks already. Can't believe it. It's been fun. I'm just wondering if anybody wants to stay around for a chat. You could, really. But you've probably got actual humans to talk to.
When's the next course starting?
Oh, I think we're going to talk to Sam Leman and get something happening.
We've got to write